Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spellbound Studio. My name is Tracy, and this is Fan Art Friday. Before we get started today, please become a star in the Spellbound constellation by liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing this video. Agatha Harkness has always thrived in the shadows. In WandaVision, she slithered into the MCU as the deceptively cheery neighbor with a knowing smile and maybe a little bit too much curiosity. But beneath that sitcom veneer was a centuries-old witch who understood something that Wanda did not. It's that power means nothing if you don't own it. With Agatha all along, Marvel finally gives her the spotlight. And what emerged was not really a villain or a mentor figure, and not even comic relief. Instead, Agatha becomes a prism through which the show explores hunger, survival, feminine agency, and the messy history of witchcraft. The series expands her lore and her backstory, and it also sharpens her complexities. And one thing becomes clear: Agatha's story is not about redemption or corruption, it is about reclamation. I also want to note here that this essay will not be about the Witch's Road. That's an entire exploration of its own. So look for that full breakdown in next week's video. Before we get started, I want you all to think about this question. It's, do you see Agatha as fundamentally a villain, a survivor, or something else? And I would love to know why. Agatha's introduction in WandaVision was theatrical by design. The structured campiness of sitcom suburbia gave her the perfect stage to perform innocence. But Agatha all along pushes us beyond the nosy neighbor archetype and into the psychic and emotional truth of a woman who has lived far too long, she's lost way too much, and she's going to refuse to die quietly. Her story begins, as so many stories of powerful women do, with punishment. The Salem flashback shows a coven that cannot contain her, magic she could not suppress, and a mother that she must destroy to survive. This is a forged in fire myth made explicit. Agatha is not chosen, blessed, or guided. She is condemned, but she survives anyway. What makes Agatha different from Wanda is not the scale of her power, but the shape of her response. When Wanda breaks inward, Agatha goes outward. When Wanda fears herself, Agatha does not fear anything at all. When Wanda grieves, Agatha is hungry. And the show uses Agatha's hunger for magic relevance immediately. They explore the psyche of a woman who long ago realized that she would never be loved for her gifts. So she stops seeking love and pursues power instead. One of Agatha all along's most interesting choices is how deeply it engages with Agatha's performative nature. She is not just theatrical, she is constructed. Every gesture, every word, every wink has purpose. She is an emotional shapeshifter, and she will emotionally shift before she magically shifts. Her persona is a shield and a weapon. It's not deception for deception's sake, because after centuries among people who would burn her alive if they knew the truth, performance becomes an armor, and she will adopt whatever mask the world demands. An obedient daughter, enthusiastic apprentice, a perky housewife. But the masks blend together so closely that they become part of her skin. But a deeper question is below the performances. Who is Agatha when nobody is watching? Now, the show doesn't really answer this directly because, truthfully, Agatha herself does not even know. She spent a very long time weaving identities. She siphons power. She claws her way through history without a real sense of purpose beyond staying alive. And it's why she's so chaotic, not really in the comedic sense, but in an existential sense. She is a creature who has survived everything except her own emptiness. And the truth is that Agatha is a woman who has lived 1,000 lives and never belonged in any of them. The MCU has always struggled with representation of women who wield power without apology. Wanda needed a narrative of grief to justify her strength. Carol Danvers was expected to prove her nobility. Natasha had to atone for her past. But Agatha, she simply is. And that's pretty revolutionary. Agatha is the opposite of the good woman archetype. She's messy, she's self-serving, she's lonely, power-hungry, and far too old to pretend otherwise. And the show does not soften her. It does not sand down her edges or force her into a likable female character box. Instead, Agatha all along celebrates her sharpness. I would say that this makes Agatha probably the MCU's most important witch figure. She embodies the older feminine archetype that patriarchal narratives often flatten. The woman who is no longer young, she's no longer pliable or interested in pleasing anyone. This is a woman who refuses to be erased. So there's a cultural resonance here as well. She's not a glamorous young witch whose power is framed as tragic or dangerous. She's a crone archetype reborn, but with humor, sexuality, vanity, bitterness, and ego intact. She reminds us that the witch is not simply a symbol of danger. She's a symbol of defiance, especially for women who have outgrown the constraints placed upon them. One of the boldest choices in Agatha all along is how it frames Wanda, not through flashbacks or cameos, but through absence. Wanda's influence lingers like smoke, and Agatha's mind has been shattered by Wanda's curse. The townspeople whisper her name like a myth. The magical ecosystem is still warped from her actions. And the Scarlet Witch becomes the invisible gravitational pull around which Agatha's story orbits. But make no mistake, this is Agatha's show. By removing Wanda from the screen, the story forces Agatha into the center, and she does not fill that space gracefully. She stumbles. She clings to remnants of her former power. She mocks her circumstances, but she begrudgingly moves forward. This is character development through inelegance, and it suits her perfectly. She's not a phoenix rising from the ashes. She's a witch crawling out of the wreckage, and she's coughing up smoke. Which is refreshing for a character. So for a character who has spent centuries alone, the most surprising twist in Agatha all along is the presence of a coven. Not as enemies or obstacles, but as something edging towards connection. Each member brings flaws, friction, and a bit of absurdity. But together they reveal a truth that Agatha ignores. She's not meant to be solitary. She's built for community, even if she refuses to admit it. The Coven offers her contrast to her cynicism, support that she did not ask for, accountability that she desperately needs, a mirror for her worst impulses, and a reminder that magic is not to be hoarded. Their presence forces Agatha to confront emotional realities that she has long buried, but it also acts as a a reminder that a witch alone is limited and a witch among others is dangerous, powerful, and uncontainable. The show constantly asks, what kind of leader can Agatha become if she ever stopped trying to stand above everyone else? And the answer is thrilling and terrifying. At its core, Agatha all along explores a theme that runs deeper than magic. What does it mean for a woman to outlive her own relevance? And that is Agatha's true conflict. She's not fighting for Wanda's power anymore. She is fighting against insignificance. Centuries of knowledge, spell work, losses, victories, betrayals, all at the risk of fading into obscurity. What happens to someone who has defined her entire identity by her magic when that magic is stolen, restrained, or overshadowed? Agatha's chaos, her hunger, her flamboyance, they are all desperate acts of self-preservation. She is not trying to destroy the world. She is trying to ensure that the world still sees her. And in this sense, she's a very human villain. Her motivation is not rooted in domination or sadness. They're rooted in a fear that many people, especially women, face as they age. What happens when the world stops looking at you or valuing you? What happens when they stop fearing you? Agatha's refusal to fade quietly is more compelling than any spell she casts. WandaVision explored the emotional consequences of grief, but Agatha all along explores the psychological consequences of ambition. Wanda was overwhelmed by her power, but Agatha is defined by it, and the loss of it through Wanda's curse leaves her hollow. The show treats magic not as a spectacle, but as identity. Without her power, Agatha is directionless, and with it she knows that she is unstoppable. The question that the show poses is not whether Agatha deserves to be powerful, but whether she knows what to do with power now that she must earn it rather than steal it. And this is the character's turning point. Not a redemption arc, but something more honest. This is a reckoning. She must confront not only the consequences of her past actions, but the emptiness behind them. She cannot return to who she was. She cannot stay who she is, and she cannot become something new without confronting why she pursued power in the first place. So the brilliance of Agatha all along is that it does not try to redeem her. It doesn't really need to. Redeeming Agatha would flatten her. So instead, the story follows the more interesting path, letting her reclaim the parts of herself that she abandoned centuries before. She does not apologize, she does not atone, seek forgiveness. She doesn't even really soften. But what she does is rediscover her agency. She steps out of Wanda's shadow. She steps out of the Salem Coven shadow. And she also steps away from her own self-sabotage, and she steps into a future that she controls. This is a reclamation arc. It's a rare kind of arc that allows a woman to be powerful, dangerous, selfish, complicated, humorous, lonely, resilient, and just simply herself without framing it as a moral failure. Agatha is not a hero, she's not a villain, but she's something that the Marvel Cinematic Universe desperately needed. She's a woman who owns her darkness with both hands. So now that we've gone through all of that, I want to ask again, do you think that Agatha deserves a true resurgence of her power? Or should her story explore something beyond magic? In the end, Agatha all along succeeds because it dares to give space to a kind of female character that we rarely see in mainstream media. She is the older witch who is not tragic or comedic. She's the woman whose value is not tied to youth or purity. She's an antagonist who refuses to be a footnote in someone else's story. Agatha Harkness stands as a reminder that power is not always noble, grief is not always transformative, and survival is not always pretty, but it is all human. She's a mess of contradictions. She's funny but scary, lonely but prideful. She's manipulative but magnetic. She's selfish but vulnerable. And through her, the show explores something vital, that identity is not static. Power is not linear, and that women, especially older women, deserve stories that let them be unforgettable. Agatha's journey is not about becoming good or staying evil, it's about refusing to disappear. And really, what better destiny could there be for a witch who has always been the most interesting one in the room? Alright everybody, well that's it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, stay spellbound.